Hello and welcome to Point of View, where we give students a place to listen, learn, and lean in. I'm your host, Jonah.
Emerson.
I'm Thomas.
And today we'll be talking about BookTok and also listing some of our favorite books.
All right. So are you guys familiar with what BookTok is?
I've heard a little bit about it, but I've never actually joined the community myself.
Yeah, same.
So I'm not in the BookTok community either, but from what I've heard and seen on the news is that BookTok is a community of people who read a certain kind of like YA fantasy book all on TikTok, and they talk about the books together. Kind of like a book club.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you guys think about that? What have you guys seen?
I've definitely seen some different people like just talking about books, which is fun. I haven't been to many book clubs myself, so I might partake in it.
Yeah, I'm not really on that side of TikTok, but I've definitely come across it a lot of times, and I've heard the name Colleen Hoover a lot.
Colleen Hoover comes up a lot. Do you guys know what's up with her? What's with the controversy?
I just know that she writes romance books.
I've got no idea what the controversy is.
I just know people don't like her and that she writes romance books. That's about it.
People really don't like her. You know, some people really love her books, and she got super popular on BookTok way back when in 2020. But recently in 2023, people are super upset with her because they think that her books are highlighting abuse and romanticizing it.
Don't want to do that.
Yes, Jonah, you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
Probably not.
No.
But BookTok has just been such a huge sensation on the internet. I mean, have you guys seen that they put in a Barnes & Noble section for it?
I have
not
seen.
gone to a Barnes & Noble recently, no.
Have you ever been to a Barnes & Noble?
No?
Okay.
I prefer the library personally.
That's fair. I've go to Barnes & Noble a lot, and yeah, I've seen that section and all the ones that I've been to.
What do you think of the books on there?
I think they seem interesting. I've seen Colleen Hoover a lot on there.
For sure. I feel like it's the audience for BookTok is kind of primarily female. Have you guys noticed that too?
Yeah, that's fair. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because it's romance books a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you guys read romance books? Do guys read romance books?
I don't
know.
No, I watch romance movies, and I used to hate that genre, and now I like the genre, but reading it, I have never really been that interested
I'm more of a fan of action and sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, for sure. I think BookTok has a huge focus on romance. If you look at any of the books in that BookTok section, it's the love hypothesis or all that kind of stuff.
So now we're going to go into talking about some of our favorite books. So let's start with you, Thomas.
Excuse me, you didn't tell me I was starting.
You will be starting, Thomas.
Okay, well, one of the books I've read, not too recently, but I still remember it pretty well, Ready Player One. It's about this guy, or it's set this dystopian universe where basically there's this massively multiplayer game where everyone's playing in it basically, so it's the second reality, and there's an Easter egg in it that basically guarantees that he's gonna get not all of the wealth, but most of the wealth and inherit the game if I'm not mistaken, and it turns into this really cool thriller and action book about how there's a race of people trying to get to the thing before everyone else, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's also turned into a movie, but I haven't seen the movie yet.
Yes, it has been turned into a movie, Jonah.
Have you seen the movie?
No, I've read the book though, so I think that counts.
The book's always better than the movie.
That's a controversial statement from Jonah there.
Yeah.
I'm here with the hot takes, guys. Come on now. I'll move into my first book, 1984. I read it a while ago, but I still remember it pretty well. So it's a dystopian novel. It's written by George Orwell and published in 1949. It's set in a future society where individuality and freedom are completely suppressed and no one really has much freedom. The story follows the protagonist Winston Smith, who's a low-ranking member of the ruling party in the world called Oceania. That's the main world, and the party is led by the enigmatic Big Brother, and they exercise complete control over every aspect of people's lives, including their thoughts and actions. And it follows Winston secretly rebelling against the oppressive regime by engaging in acts of defiance, such as keeping a forbidden diary and initiating a forbidden love affair with Julia, who's a fellow party member. And it navigates themes of just individualism and having your own thoughts a lot. And it's a pretty good book. It's from 1950, and I still think it's one of the greatest books I've ever read. It really holds up.
Yeah, I mean, 1984 was fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you heard about all the book bans and that kind of stuff? Why do you think they would take that off the shelves?
There's a lot of book bans that, I disagree with, but I see why some people might think of some themes as, not child appropriate. But for 1984, I don't even really understand why. That one I really couldn't even think of anything.
They were banning 1984?
I didn't even know 1984 was
Yeah,
being
for
banned.
sure. 1984 has been on the list. Fahrenheit 451, quite ironically, right?
Yeah, aren't those...
Mouse is a big one that's been on the list a lot,
True.
and I don't understand it, but
Aren't they exactly just proving the points of the books by banning them?
I'm saying
yeah,
that.
I mean, they're teaching people these things in history. They're teaching people about other things that they're unfamiliar with, and if we're stopping that, then we're just ignoring history, and that's so bad. But,
Anyways, back to history. I chose Slaughterhouse-Five as the book I was going to talk about. Slaughterhouse-Five is a book about war. It's kind of postmodernist in a way, which some people don't like, but is my favorite genre. Slaughterhouse-Five follows the story of Billy Pilgrim in his pursuit of knowledge across times. He time travels between his time in war, in childhood, in optometry, and even his experience on an alien planet. Slaughterhouse-Five teaches an important lesson in war, love, and loss, teaching that war leads to nothing but wrong no matter how much we glamorize it. The book's alternative name, The Children's Crusade, now represents how the soldiers in World War I were far too young to see war. The story is compelling because you grow to empathize with the slightly odd Billy Pilgrim in his story, who you're not quite sure is all there.
I kind of forgot what the word postmodern meant.
yeah. Could you give, a definition of the genre?
Postmodern, in a way, is kind of just odd, you know what I mean? It might follow like a stream of thought kind of storyline, or it's really just weird. If you're familiar with the other book I'm going to talk about, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, it's kind of in that way, you know what I mean?
I was thinking postmodernism as futuristic, because post the modern era. That's where my mind went. But,
You could say the aliens are kind of futuristic.
Yeah.
Speaking of aliens, that's a good segue into my next book, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
My next book is actually called Ender's Game, and it's by Orion Scott Card. It's basically about this kid, I think nicknamed Ender. It has been a while since I last read it. And basically, he's this child that's taken into this special training camp for young children so that they can train them up and fight aliens legitimately. In the book, they call them buggers, but it's this whole war between this alien species that's a hive mind versus humanity. And they're only taking these kids and training them in space for a last-ditch effort.
Sounds pretty interesting. My next book is another dystopian. It's called Unwind, and it's written by Neil Shusterman. And it has a very horrifying kind of plot. It's set in a future society where parents can choose to have their children quote-unquote unwound between the ages of 13 and 18. And unwinding, it's a process where a child's organs and their body parts are harvested for transplantation, and it effectively ends their life, but it technically keeps them alive in just a divided state. So the government implemented this it was after this massive fictional civil war, and they needed a way to keep peace. And to keep peace, they essentially thought anything that's causing a big issue, before they can cause a massive issue. So when they're a child, if they're unruly, their parents can have them unwound, and those body parts, those organs can go to people that truly need them to make the society better. And it follows three teenagers, Connor, Risa, and Lev, who are scheduled to be unwound for various reasons, and their journey to escape this fate. And it really dives deep into themes of morality and the value of life in a very, very thought-provoking narrative. And there's even some kids that are bred and fostered to be unwound, so that's their only life's purpose, to be used for others. So it's a really interesting book.
So you said they were still technically alive?
Yeah, they're not really alive, but they justify it. The government justifies their actions by saying, oh, you're technically alive, you're just separated.
Are they still sentient while doing it, or...
In the fourth book, one of the main characters goes through the process, and it's shown that they are somehow. It's kind of hard to explain how they are, but they are. So yeah, but it's a horrifying thing to happen to you.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a very good book though. It's actually a book series of 4. So
wow.
Yeah.
Those heavy topics.
Yeah.
This one's a little less heavy, but kind of on the same wavelength. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime follows the story of Christopher John Francis Boone, who finds his neighbor's dog Wellington dead on his front lawn and begins a detective-esque investigation. This story explores the nature of loss and autism intertwined, creating a compelling story for empathy for neurodivergent people. The book is filled with numbers and joy, but also with grief and loss. It poses a question: what does family mean? This is one of my favorite books because it shows characters are complicated and multifaceted, neither fully good or fully bad, but somewhere in a gray area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said it was like focused on autism and loss. How does autism play into the story itself?
So our main character is autistic. He's an only child. His parents are separated, and one of his parents left because he was autistic. So this is his kind of story.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I'm also a big comic fan. I doubt anyone would really know that. But one of my favorite comic books ever, it's called Watchmen, and it was written by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. It's set in an alternate history where superheroes exist, and it explores the complexities of the power and identity of them against the backdrop of an impending nuclear war. The story follows a group of retired vigilantes investigating the murder of one of their own, and it leads them to uncover a conspiracy that threatens the world's stability. Through its intricate plot and multifaceted characters and richly detailed artwork, Watchmen challenges traditional superhero narratives, and it delves into philosophical questions about human nature and the consequences of wielding power. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the comic character Dr. Manhattan.
I have not.
No,
He's a blue guy. He's also in it. He's one of the more popular characters that's in it. But it's a really good comic. It's very thought provoking. It's not just blam fighty. It's really, really good and thought provoking, and I like it a lot.
For sure.
Yeah. So, just real quick, what are some genres that you guys like? Just one genre that you like the most and that intrigues you the most.
That's a good question.
Outside of fantasy, I'd probably say honestly a mystery as well.
Dude, I love mystery books.
A good mystery book will get me hooked for like the entire 500 pages or however many
Yeah,
it has.
I completely agree. Agatha Christie, she's a big mystery novelist, and I've read some of her books, and her books are always very compelling. And I'm also a big sci-fi fan, but because I've read Dune, and Dune's pretty great.
Yeah. I know it wasn't really super evident in my recommendations, but I'm a really big fan of nonfiction, specifically mathematical history. You know this. You guys know this. Hey, you're a movie nerd, so...
Movies are cool with the math. Okay, keep going.
I really like just learning through nonfiction. I think that's what we seek to do in all reading, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that about wraps it up. This concludes this episode of Point of View. Thank you so much for listening. For a transcript of this episode, head to the Point of View tab on our website, nhsmessenger.org, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at NHS Point of View for updates and new episodes. I'm your host, Jonah.
Emerson.
And I'm Thomas.
And this has been Point of View.